Hello, everyone, and welcome to Viral Enthusiast. Here's what's coming up.
London bus drivers voting on strike action. We look at the 1,600 London bus drivers who are balloting for strike action over pay. Plus, a drop in reliability. We look at the Elizabeth line and how it's plummeted with their £1 billion fleet and how it's well below the average in terms of reliability and what has caused the 79 carriage trains to be ranked 26th best out of 38 different types of trains in use across the country. And we take a deep dive into Sadiq Khan's £24 million off-peak Friday fares trial, as it's had little impact according to the data, and the Mayor of London's faced criticism for it and also has been labelled as having negligible impact.
Welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Viral Enthusiast in London. And tonight we start off by talking about strike action, which has always hit London very hard, as now 1,600 bus drivers are set to take action over pay. This is something that's going to affect a major amount of people who travel on all of transport, as there's a community which unite and say that the trade union has said that the members employed by London Transport were voting over an ongoing dispute. And this dispute said that the drivers who work on services across southwest and central London had rejected a 4% pay offer, which Unite claimed was a real terms pay cut. French state-owned RATP Group, which runs London United, has been contacted for further comment. A ballot for industrial action has opened this week and will close on the 22nd of July. Unite Regional Officer Michelle Braveboy said that London United will be directly responsible for any disruption caused to bus servicing in South West and Central London. There's still time to avoid strike action in London, but London United must offer a table for members which can be accepted. Unite said also that members refused the 4% increase as the retail price index inflation rate was 5.1% when pay increase was meant to be implemented in December 2023. According to the Office National Statistics, the annual RPI was 5.2% in December 2023. The union did say a scheduling agreement and the boost of terms and conditions put forward by London United were not fit for purpose, and the move follows a recent Unite strike action by London bus drivers employed by other operators, including Abellio. A Transport for London spokesperson said, quote, "We must encourage Unite and London United to work together to come to an agreement and avoid disruption to Londoners." Now, this is not the first case of strike action being taken, as back in November 2023, if you remember, commuters in West London faced disruption as about 350 drivers had taken action in a row over pay as well. Up to 8 routes had been affected by the industrial pay action by Unite union drivers working for the London Transit. Little to no service is expected until 6 o'clock on Saturday on the affected routes. The strike is the first of 6 that are scheduled to be held across November and December, and most of the London bus networks will continue to operate normally on these days, and many affected roads will be served by alternative bus routes, rail replacement, and other services. TfL went on to say that they're actively working to minimize the impact of the strikes. The strike action affects the routes 13, 23, 28, 218, 295, 414, 428, and N58. The drivers will be taking strike action after rejecting a 6.8% pay offer, which was a significant real terms pay cut. It said that the dispute was also about the company, which was owned by RAP and attempting to reduce terms and conditions, including removing a long-standing £500 meal relief payment and attacking arrangements for a how workers take the days off in lieu. Unite Regional Officer Michelle Braveboy said that the strike action will inevitably cause disruption to passengers, but this is entirely the fault of London Transit and RAP's management. They have had every opportunity to resolve this, but only have failed to do so. TfL has urged Unite and RAP Dev Transit London to seek a resolution to the dispute. The strike also scheduled for the 13th of November as well as the 1st, 4th, 2nd, 22nd, and 23rd of December. And in January of this year as well, some bus workers in London are set to begin strike action this week after rejecting an offer of a 5% pay rise. About 40 staff who work in the control rooms for Abellio, also known as Transport UK Group, are set to walk out on the 19th and 26th of January, 2nd, 9th, 23rd of February, Unite said, and the routes impacted mostly were the ones in southwest London. Transport UK have also said that the action was disappointing, while TfL said buses would run, but routes might be busier. Unite called the 5% increase for the 2023 a substantial real terms pay cut. The union said that the workers already earn approximately 10,000 per year. Similar staff, other bus companies, and had been offered a smaller pay increase than what was offered to members doing the same job at competitor companies. The staff use satellite GPS systems to monitor bus routes across London and to tell drivers about the impact of traffic jams or in accidents. And now, have we seen a drop in reliability on the Elizabeth line? Well, there's been studies saying that it's been below average in the UK train reliability league table, as it's fallen massively, and the Elizabeth line's £1 billion fleet of trains is well below average in terms of the detailed analysis as well of the UK rolling stock, which has been revealed, and the 79 carriage trains were ranked 26th best out of 38 different types of trains in use across the country, with an average of 5,732 miles between developing faults. In contrast to this, the best developing performer was Lumo, the low cost startup that runs high speed electric trains, which runs across the East Coast mainland between King's Cross, Newcastle, and Edinburgh. Now, the Elizabeth line has also become the busiest of this line since its opening 2 years ago, with almost 790,000 passengers a day during the peak hours. But the train reliability has suffered because of the stopping frequency, as there's about 41 stations on the line, and the complexity of its onboard software, which has to commute with three different signaling systems along the 73-mile route. Roger Ford, who's the industry and technology editor at Modern Railways magazine, who's compiled the reliability league table since 2019, has gone on to say that the Elizabeth line trains have not had gotten significantly better, but since entering service 6 years ago, when they were ran on TfL rail services, the the prosecutor to the Lizzie line between Shenfield and Liverpool Street. Earlier this month, the government gave Transport for London funding approval to buy another 10 of the Elizabeth line trains from the Derby-based manufacturer Alstom, which also tackled the fear of overcrowding when HS2 opened at Old Oak Common in 2030, which we've also previously spoken about in previous episodes on this program about Alstom being something that's key to train manufacturers. Also, when they suffered that period of no train manufacturers and could have faced closure as well because they were getting no deliveries sent over to them for making manufacturing trains at that time. Now, HS2 passengers will also have to use Elizabeth lines to reach central London's for about a decade until HS2 stations at Euston opens in 2040. Mr. Ford also went on to say that there were, quote, many embarrassing questions raised by the reliability data, which suggested that the modern fleet of trains had performed worse than those that were replaced. He also went on to say, quote, everybody wants new trains, but the message is buy wisely, he told the Standard in a previous report. The most reliable trains generally are the ones which, after rail preservations, the new ones are not as reliable. The question is, why? But nobody knows. Separate data from the Office of Road and Rail showed that the Elizabeth line was the second most punctual railway in the UK, with 81.8% of trains arriving on time between January and March. Greater Anglia was in first place with 85.8% of trains on time. Punctuality is on the Elizabeth line, whose passengers have faced repeated problems of Paddington, often to track failures, fell 3.4 points on the same period of year earlier. South Western Railway Class 707 trains, which were used on the Windsor to Waterloo routes, were the second most reliable, though they are due to be replaced by the long-delayed Arterio trains passed on by Southeastern. And here you can see a photo of what the trains could look like in the future. Mr. Ford went on to say that there's three generations of trains in the UK: the ex-British trains, those bought immediately after train preservation, and those bought since the franchising rule changed in 2013, which awarded firms bonuses for introducing the new rolling stock. He said that Luma was doing very well and its fleet of Hitachi trains, its electric train, so it has no diesel engine to go wrong, he said. It runs fast and cooling at very few stations, so they don't have to open the doors very often. The performance is also quite staggering. Mr. Ford awards the Golden Spanners to the best trains and best depots, such as Southwestern Railway Depot in Wimbledon. Earlier this week, Avanti West Coast announced that it's completed a 117 million refurbishment of its Pendolino trains running on the West Coast main between Euston, Manchester, Liverpool, and Glasgow. And all 56 Pendolians were ranked just ahead of the Elizabeth line trains in terms of reliability, which had been refurbished of a total 574 carriages over the last 2 years. The trains were in service for almost 20 years, but internally are now as new. Each of the 35 11 carriage trains had a first class carriage converted to standard class to increase the number of cheaper seats there are to power points at every seat, and our toilets have been refurbished as well. Andy Mellors, the Avanti West Coast managing director, said, quote, "The Pendolios are an iconic train, and now even better than before." And finally, tonight, we look at London Mayor Sadiq Khan's £24 million off-peak Friday fares trial, which has had little impact according to data. Now, Sadiq Khan has been criticized over this, as it's appeared to show that his scheme has encourage Londoners back into the office on Fridays and boost the capital's economy has had a negligible impact. The mayor has launched his off-peak Fridays fares trial earlier this year to entice people back into central London by abolishing the rush hour peak tube and rail fares at the end of each working week. Now, the rise in Londoners working from home, particularly in the aftermath of the COVID pandemic 4 years ago, has meant that in city centres are quieter than they were before COVID. The scheme ran on Fridays for a period of 13 weeks starting on March 8th and concluding on May 31st. The trial was advertised to Londoners across tube networks with several discount offers on restaurant and attractions, also promoted to tie in with the scheme. But tube ridership data has shown that the scheme appears to have resulted in only a 3% increase in ridership. Roughly 40.6 million underground journeys were made on Fridays during this Friday trial period, excluding Good Friday, where all fares were off peak anyway due to it being a bank holiday. Ridership during the same set of Fridays in 2023 was only slightly lower at about 39.4 million journeys, again excluding Black Friday. A Good Friday. The figures have all been available on TfL's website, only covering the tube journeys and do not include ridership on the Elizabeth line, Overground, DLR, and London's National Rail services, as were also part of the trial. TfL said in its finance report earlier this month that the journeys across all of its services were up to 6% compared to last year, meaning that 3% rise on the tube on Fridays meant that they'll largely happen without the trial. National rail strikes also appear to have reduced ridership as well, levels on the relevant Fridays in 2023. Keith Prince, the City Hall's Conservative transport spokesman, said that the mayor's latest TfL experiment was nothing but an expensive election bribe. Off-peak Fridays will end up costing taxpayers an estimated £24 million despite having a negligible impact on passenger numbers. Whilst we all want the tube to be as cheap as possible, the £24 million, which was set out by Sadiq Khan, spent on off-peak Fridays, could have been better used for funding new zero-emission buses, or to sort out the problem with the Central Line, or procuring, despite desperately needed rolling stocks on Croydon's tram network. A TfL spokesperson and spokeswoman have also said in response to this that they'll continue to analyze the impact of the trial on off-peak pay and also on pay-as-you-go fares on the tube and rail services on Friday, with the week ending on the 31st of May 2024. This analysis will help take into account a number of aspects, including assessing change to both morning peak ridership and overall daily ridership, as well as the impact to businesses across London. TfL points out that the publicly available figures only show total ridership each day, making it less useful for assessing any specific journeys during rush hour periods covered by the trial. The authority also notes that the ridership always was always changeable around bank holidays, the Easter period, and school holidays in April and in May. The 24 million funding to support the trial was used to offset the difference in revenue shortfall created by the scheme, and the mayor's office said that at this time it was signed off. The City Hall sources have previously rejected suggestions that the mayor squirreled away but money in order to spend it just prior to his re-election bid was calling for the election accusation, which was called complete nonsense by his members. A date has not yet been put out by TfL when they'll publish its own comprehensive trial reports. But speaking in the State Union debate last week, the mayor said that the pre-election period has slowed things down, but he'd hoped that in the next couple of months, he will have the results of the off-peak trial. Mr. Khan also said that he's boosting the footfall to workplaces and businesses on Fridays is an issue. Cities across the world are grappling with, and the results of the London's trials will be closely watched by politicians and transport officials across the globe. And that's the way we will end tonight's show. That's it for now. Remember, if you ever miss our show, you can always catch us across all of our platforms, and you can watch our podcast here on youtube.com/ehventhusiast/podcast, and you can find all of our other content as well on our second channel, London Transport Enthusiast. Remember, you can always catch us online as well on all of our social media platforms, on YouTube, Twitter, and on Flickr. Thanks for watching, and goodbye from London.